and welcome to the Surviving Trauma Stories of Hope podcast. Today, I welcome the very chic Grace Lunika to the podcast. She joins me from her beautiful home in Cape Town. Grace is a business professional, a mom, a daughter, a sister, and so much more. In this episode, we discuss Grace's journey of becoming a mom to her baby boy who blessed her with his presence for 24 days. We delve into how Grace dealt with the pain of losing her baby so soon after giving birth to him, and she shares an honest and open account of how she worked through her grieving process. Grace truly embodies her name. She is beautiful, elegant, courteous, filled with goodness, and just an all-round inspiring person. I'm proud to call her a friend. This is an emotional yet beautiful story, and I know that it will impact lives in a positive manner. Enjoy the episode, and a special thank you to my listeners for joining me on this journey. Head over to the My Centered Life Facebook or Instagram page and let me know what you think of the episode. As always, stay tuned and keep listening. Hi, Grace. Welcome so very, very much to this episode of Surviving Trauma Stories of Hope. I am so glad that you can join me today. I just knew that I needed to get you on the show to come and share your beautiful story with us. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Wow, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm excited to have a chat with you. This is probably going to be the first time that I ever share my journey in such great detail. So thank you for that.
It's such a beautiful story. I had such a great catch up with you not too long ago. So now to have another catch up so soon after, I'm excited about that. It's always so awesome to chat to you.
Thank you so much, Marlene. I remember that day and it was very special for both of us, I must say.
Yes, no, I agree. So I know you as a very accomplished woman and very stylish and chic, but for the audience, give them a little bit of background. Tell them a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Grace Lunika and I am a professional, in the chemicals business, but I'm also a mother and I feel very proud to call myself a mother. I am a daughter, I'm a friend. I am a healer, healer in words and healer in terms of words of encouragement for family and friends and all of that. So I like to see myself as a well-rounded person with career, but then also with a sense of authenticity in the life that I live.
And I can attest to that because it comes through in just your nature. I love it. I love you. And I'm just so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for saying that. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, no, you're stunning. So you know that the show is about people sharing their experiences with me and also just chatting with me about the things that have helped them in getting through their traumatic experiences in their lives. And I know that today we're going to chat about you. And I remember when we first spoke about it, I said, Grace, you are a mother. And I want you to tell me about your son, right? And that's really how we got onto this beautiful, beautiful story and your beautiful journey. Yeah. So I know that you have a son and I would like for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, when we say our bundle of joy, my son, his name is Pilela, and I named him myself. And, I went through a lot of thought process around naming him and who I wanted him to represent. And, I was always aware of the fact that I didn't want to project my own dreams and my own desires through him. And when I named him Pilela, meaning live for God, I wanted him to live for God, to live his purpose. So that was the thought process that went behind naming him. Yes.
And that was being a first-time mom. So it's so exciting choosing the name,
Yeah.
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 The time preparing, leading up for the birth of your baby. It's exciting times.
Exactly. It was indeed. For me, it was new hope. It
Yeah.
was a light at the end of the tunnel. My life has taken me through so many dark tunnels, and my baby was just a hope for a new life and me just doing something meaningful in life. So I was excited to have him, of course. And unfortunately, things didn't turn out that way.
So you carried him full term.
Yes, I did.
And tell me, was it a natural birth? Was it something that you had to schedule?
I had to schedule, of course, it would have been nice to have natural birth, but due to circumstances that were surrounding me at the time, I had to schedule it in order for me to plan to take myself to hospital and all of that. So it was a cesarean section that I opted to go for.
I think the doctors also like that, to plan the time. And especially for like a busy executive like you need to know what is going to happen. So it makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Exactly. They do that. And I mean, I was aware that he was quite a big baby. I mean, our mothers gave birth to us. We were big, so there was no problem in that. I didn't have concerns about giving birth myself, but I had to plan for it.
Yeah. So I mean, take us through your birth experience. So you pack your bag, you go to the hospital, they wheel you in, and you're getting ready for the birth of your baby.
Right. Yes. Very exciting, I must say. So everything is planned. I go to hospital. I had my mom and my sister with me. And I go to the delivery room. I'm ready. And I had epidural. I was experiencing this whole process myself. And I had doctors around me, being cut and whatever. And I saw the baby come out.
Wow.
And
Beautiful.
yes. So for me, I wasn't even sure how, was I excited or what? I don't know. I just saw this big baby coming out of me. And a few minutes after that, after he had come out, I saw the pediatrician, I don't know what he was doing with him. He was sucking his nose and whatever. And it seemed like there was a problem. Then I could feel the energy in the room that something had gone wrong. And suddenly they put him in the incubator and he was rushed into ICU. I got to learn that he had difficulty breathing. Everybody was in a rush. And of course, my gynecologist had to complete therapy because I was still open, I think, although I wasn't feeling anything. But I just could see some of the nurses and the pediatrician just rushing their baby out. Then I got concerned.
Yeah.
My sister is with me in the room. She was taking photographs. And so everything is done. They clean me up and so on. And they were ready to take me back to the ward. And at this time, as they wheel me out of the operating room, I can see my mother sitting there, I can see her face that she now realizes that something has gone wrong. And at that moment, I know that there's an issue. And I think about 3 hours later, the pediatrician comes to me to tell me that my baby is very sick. He had difficulty breathing. His lungs are full of fluid. It's the fluid that protects the lungs while he's still in the tummy. So the fluid was supposed to have drained itself out as they took him out, but that process didn't happen. So they're doing their best to make sure that he survives. But, they had to be frank with me that he was very, very ill.
So and basically like an enzyme that's supposed to kick in, that stops the fluid from being produced.
Right. Yes. there's an enzyme. Of course, I had to check that information out later. What is the process? So the enzyme didn't kick in, so the fluid kept on producing as if he was still in the tummy. I got those news delivered to me. I can remember the feeling of, when you feel like your spine has just literally frozen.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
that's part of the feeling I had.
Because there was so much joy and excitement for this new little life. And now to learn that he is so very, very ill, that is so sad.
It was indeed. I had to decide whether or not I want to see him. And at that moment, I decided, you know what? The way the doctor had explained the situation, it seems like he's not going to make it. So let me rather not see him at all until what needs to happen. So I spent that day. The following day, one of the nurses actually spoke to me and said, you know what? Maybe you should go see your son, right? I decided, okay, let me do it. What's the worst that could happen? And he was still alive at the time. And I had thought that by morning he would have, been gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I dragged myself. I was still very much in pain because of the operation. And I got there in the ICU and I could see him from a distance. He was the biggest baby in the intensive care unit. As I walked towards him, I have never experienced anything like this in my life. Instant, unconditional love. And from that moment, I just could not stop myself going to see him, to play with him. I used to play with his toes. I really, really fell in love with my baby. And I think this is, for me, it's the biggest gift that he has ever given me.
Yes.
As a mother. And I know mothers experience this, but I also had my opportunity to fall in love like that,
Yes. And to have that little guy just love you unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
I remember you showed me his picture and he was such a handsome little boy. He had the cutest little chubby cheeks. You would never even have said that he was ill. He looked so healthy and beautiful.
He did. He looked so healthy. The nurses that were helping him, they used to call him fatty, He was
because he was chubby everywhere.
He was chubby everywhere. Most gorgeous baby I've ever seen. I mean, I will say that it's my baby.
Yes, but I've seen him and I agree with you. He was very handsome.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of a very difficult and traumatic journey for me. And he was in that intensive care unit for 24 days after his birth. And every day was a day of anxiety. I mean, I would receive calls from hospital that we are losing him today. And I would drive myself to hospital to see what is going on. And he would survive the day. So every day was a lifetime for him and for myself. It was a journey that just, when you feel like your back is against the wall, there's nothing you can do. All I could do was pray. All I could do was beg God to save him, give me a miracle. It was a difficult journey, but it was also a very impactful journey for me.
Yeah. I'm listening to you. You drove yourself to the hospital after a cesarean section.
Yep.
Girl, I'm telling you, I hear about moms that would do anything for their babies. You hear about these people, they have strength that they never knew they had. They will lift cars up and take out their babies if need be. I mean, that's major surgery and you're operating a vehicle. Sure.
When you don't have an alternative, I mean, I had my mom and sister there with me. And at the time, none of them could drive. And so it was me. And I cannot imagine the grace I received during that time, to be able to carry myself. Yes, I was in pain, but I think I was facing a greater pain than any other pain that I was experiencing at that time. So, yeah, I managed. I don't know how, but I did.
I'm so glad that you got to spend that time with him. It sounds to me like the decision that you made to go and actually see him was like one of the best decisions.
I think so too. And I mean, they gave me an opportunity to express my milk. And he was being fed my milk. And for me, that was special as well, The time with him was really, really special. And I never, no matter how painful the experience was, but I never wanted to leave his side, because as much as I was praying for a miracle, but there was another part of me much deeper than I could understand, that just knew that things were just going south and he was never going to come back to me. So I had to I had to be there. I had to see him. I had to allow myself to experience the pain that he was also experiencing. That little body, he experienced a lot of pain. I cannot even imagine. He had a lot of operations during that time. He had a lot of cuts and, of course, they were trying their best to save him. But I just could not imagine just how much pain he went through. I mean, it was incredible for such a baby. I never knew there was ever anything like that baby's experience. But yeah, I had to allow myself to experience that pain as well. Yeah.
Sure. Tell me what happened on the day that he passed away. Were you with him?
I was in hospital on the day, of course, and I had seen him earlier. I had seen his body wither, I could see that he's no longer that beautiful baby, beautiful, healthy baby that he was. I mean, of course, that was happening over time. But that day in particular, I could see that he almost seemed like he had no life in him. Lost his complexion. He was becoming darker by the day. And I could see that he was having anxiety. But at the time, I didn't know it was anxiety, but his breathing was just concerning for me. And I walked out to have lunch. And I was there actually with my mom. And while we were having lunch, I got a call from the doctor to say, hey, please come, And I was happy that I was still in hospital at the time. And when I got there, they had already closed the curtain. And I'd never seen that in the 24 days that I'd been visiting him. The doctor told me that this is it, I think we are losing him. And I said, well, it is what it is. I mean, a few times before that, actually, the doctor was talking to me saying that, they can't do anything. I mean, they feel like it's time for me to let him go. And I've always maintained, I think I had these conversations 2 or 3 times. And I've always had to maintain that that's not my decision to make. That's his. I'm not going to say, turn off the machines or whatever. It's not my decision. And I stood by that let him allow the process to happen.
It's a hard decision to say, I'm going to end his life by turning off the machines. I mean, you let God step in.
Exactly. So they calling me, and I said to the doctor, well, if that's his decision, then let it be. And I could see the tears in her eyes and the doctor. And, oh man, that broke my heart, because it was clear that she had also bonded with him, Yeah. And anxiety levels on Pilela were quite high. I mean, I could see this breathing was even more intense than I had noticed earlier. I just heard the doctor ask for morphine from the nurses, and she injected him morphine. And it is at that time that I understood that what he was going through was painful.
Yes.
You know, it was the hardest
thing. Morphine is a very strong painkiller.
Yes.
Yeah. For his small body.
For a small body, as soon as she asked for morphine, then it occurred to me that, okay, my baby is in pain, right? And it is also at the same moment that I said, it's okay. It's okay. You know, do what you have to do. And little moments after that, he gasped his last breath.
Aww.
And it's the only time that I got to hold him, because the nurses actually gave me this lifeless body. That was the only time I got to hold him. And
yes,
I held on to him, and I could say, I don't know what was happening. Maybe it was just gas coming out of him, and there was still holding me. And I thought, oh my God, he's coming back to life. But no, he wasn't actually. You know, I held him. I said, well, if my gift is to hold a lifeless body, then let it be. I held him because I fell in love with him unconditionally, right?
Yes.
So that meant whether he's dead or alive.
Absolutely.
And
he was your boy, and he still is your boy.
Yes. I had the same love as I was holding him lifeless, right? I realized that it's the end of this chapter with him.
Yes.
And new life was about to begin.
After you left him, there was the processing and the mourning and the grieving that you had to then do. Grief is such a powerful emotion, and it can be debilitating. How did you grieve for him?
I still believe today that there was a guiding force behind everything that I decided to do. I wanted to take ownership of what had happened, because I felt like if I got stuck in the blame space, like why did God do this to me? Why did that happen? They could have done this. I was never going to get out of it. So I went home and I decided, okay, I'm going to bury my son in the best way that I can, and did. And then after that, I decided to go back to work. I couldn't allow myself to stay at home. And I had experienced depression before, and I knew exactly the signs and symptoms. And I caught myself getting back there, and I could never allow myself to go back there. And for that reason, I decided, okay, I'm going back to work. And I did. And when I got to work, I realized that bills were piling up. You know, the medical aid had not paid, and I had to sort out those accounts one by one. It was the most painful experience that I've ever had to experience post my son leaving me.
It's true, because, I mean, you're in such a state of sadness and grief at that time. Mm-hmm. And then to find that, okay, now the bills hasn't been paid. Dealing with insurance companies, all those phone calls, that's not fun. That is no fun.
Yeah. It wasn't fun at all. I think I spent a week going through each and every one of those bills, calling those people. Now, every time you make a call, you have to explain, yeah, my son, this. No, he's passed on. So I don't know how many times I had to repeat that to myself. And I don't know how many times I had to feel that pain, hearing myself saying that repeatedly, bill after bill, invoice after invoice. When I look back, I think it was necessary for me to allow myself to feel the pain. Because, you know, as human beings, we want to run away from it. Somebody else must do it. The beauty of that is that as you say it, it reinforces the message in your mind. Then you start thinking about, okay, this has happened. What needs to happen next? So I completed that project. Everything was sorted. Everything was paid. Thank God. And I decided, okay.
Yay for medical insurance.
Yeah, exactly. And I decided I'm going to go for grief counseling. So I went for it. I got the information. It was clear. I knew that there was a huge mountain to climb ahead of me. And I looked for places like sources of comfort, sources of information, sources of new knowledge, new information that I needed to be able to process what had happened to me. Because at that time, God didn't make sense. Everything I knew about God was just like, it just didn't make sense. How could this happen to me if God was God, right?
Yeah.
So I redefined my understanding of who God was. And I got into a program which I think was so impactful for me. And that then kickstarted my grieving process. And I had to allow myself to be very systematic about it. I had to allow myself to be very aware about the fact that I was responsible. It might have been something that happened in my past life or in my previous life. It didn't matter. It didn't have to be true. It didn't have to make sense to me. But I needed to take responsibility, because it is from that place that you can actually start to heal. It is from that place that I felt like I had control over this. I didn't want to blame. I didn't want to say if this had happened. I wanted my mind to focus on the fact that I was responsible, therefore I'm still responsible of taking myself out of it.
Yes, we have to accept the lessons that we must learn. And when a little boy who lives 24 days comes and brings that lesson, unlocks a whole new world within you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that was the essence of the journey for me with Pilela. It was a journey of awakening, for the lack of a better word, to say, I am a creator. Yeah. I create my reality. It was very, very liberating, and still is. And from that moment, I can say, Marlene, that my life took a 365-degree turn in terms of my mental well-being, physical well-being, and every area of my life got impacted in a positive way. Because
I've got goosebumps. This is amazing.
Really did allow myself to feel pain in order for the rough edges to be smoothed out, in order for new understanding to come in. Now I have a relationship with God, and God for me, according to my understanding, as a result of this legal life coming through me and having such an impactful experience for me, and I believe for him as well, right?
Yes. That little guy had a purpose. He took on the journey and he made a success of what it was that he came to do here. I mean, Certainly. Look at you. You are glowing. When you speak about him, you glow.
Yeah, he was my gift. I would say a gift of freedom. Freedom in the mind, freedom emotionally, freedom in every aspect of my life. And I will forever cherish this freedom.
Yeah. And when we have that freedom, the energies just flow through us.
Yeah. It does. It does, right? It does. In such a positive way. And, Marlene, I'm not saying that my life is perfect. The freedom just makes life so effortless. And
that's beautiful. That is beautiful. That is gold. I was going to ask you about you letting him go, like he was always your boy. You had ownership over him, because that's also a beautiful part of your story.
Yes. So, yes, I mean, he was my son, right? And I understood that after he had passed on, he was an angel, a guardian angel for me, and only for me, because I gave birth to him, right?
You owned him. He was yours.
It was my baby, my angel. I went through pain for him. What I perceived as the end of my grieving process, which I think it took about 4 years, to get to that point where I felt like, you know what, I want to do a tombstone for him and all of that. And on the tombstone, the writing is my son, my beloved son, but it's my. Usually on the tombstone you write, it's usually our beloved son or our whatever.
Yes.
For me, it was
my son.
So when the tombstone was completed, I went there to not just to have a few words with him in spirit, right? And I felt like it was time for me to let him go. Since I had named him Pilela and Live for God, I felt like, whether it's true or not, I felt like I was still holding on to him. It's still mine, And I came to that realization that I needed to let him go and do what he needs to do, live for God. And so that's the conversation I had with him. I said, baby, it's time now. Mommy is letting you go. You are no longer mine and mine alone. You belong to the universe, and let the universe use you in a way that it wants to use you, And
that was exactly my thought. Wow. And I mean, there's that freedom that you speak about, letting him go, right?
Yeah.
And being at peace with that.
Exactly.
He did his job. He did it well. He's your son, but now he belongs to the universe.
Belongs to the universe. And that was also freeing for me to say, I am so open and I just want you to be the highest angel there ever was, So just go do you, baby. So that I had to come to that point, and I did, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I must tell you, it's such a beautiful journey. It's a difficult one, but so beautiful when we look back and we can say there is light at the end of the tunnel. And we got to experience that.
Yeah.
Grace, what do you say to parents who are going through this grieving process where they have lost a child? What advice would you give to them?
I would say you have done nothing wrong, and everything is happening because it should happen that way. I think most importantly is to allow yourself to feel the pain. I think for me, that was the most important part of the journey, is let me feel the pain, so that in future, when I speak about this experience, the pain is no longer there. It is just a memory. Feeling the pain is the best thing you can ever do for yourself. And I mean, when you feel the pain, you feel it, it grills you and whatever. There's no way it's going to be baggage, because by feeling, you are processing it, right? And you are leaving it behind you. Yeah. So for me, very important in whatever circumstance, whether it's fear, feel the fear, or even happiness, right? Allow yourself happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
So for me, it's that. It's as simple as that. And you can do this. Grieving, it's difficult, but it can be done. And it can be done with mindfulness, not subconsciously, but it can be done with you being aware of what you are going through and what you are feeling. And I think that's the important thing. Yeah.
Any last words of inspiration that you have for the audience?
Well, For me, I would say thank you for listening. I mean, if your listeners are listening up until to this point, then it means it was interesting enough. So thank you so much for listening. And hopefully we can grieve being mindful of what we are doing, basically,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grieve with mindfulness. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Grace, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I had so much fun. I always have so much fun with you.
Thanks, Marlene. At least it wasn't 7 hours, so we're doing good. We're getting somewhere.
Thank you for coming on to the podcast and sharing your story with us. I am grateful because every story and every journey is different. And I always say that even if we touch one life with this story, then our work is done. And then I have set out what I wanted to do, and you've set out what you've wanted to do. And that is good enough for me. I think that there's value that the listeners can take from your journey, because your journey was so inspirational to me. I am not a mother, and so I have never experienced that. And I've always said that, I felt like if you are not a mother, there's a level of maturity that you just never, ever reach. And I always felt like I never reached that because I never had kids. Even though I've had kids in my life, I've never had my own. And that is what was so beautiful for me about your story. You got to experience the life-changing event that is motherhood. And that is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. Yeah, it was truly enjoyable. And I can't believe that I did not shed one tear.
You made progress, girl. You're fabulous. That wraps up this podcast episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, please take a minute to give me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast directory so you don't miss an episode. Please consider following My Centered Life on Facebook and Instagram for daily inspiration. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. You can catch me again in the next episode. Same time, same place. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye.